We talked about the sequence of instructing umpires, and we had a conversation regarding what to go with first. During the umpire school, the first thing we do is a demonstration of how to work the slot and how to position your feet. You certainly don't want to go to the basic six first, because like we talked about earlier, people don't have an understanding of why you're telling them to do certain things in the basic six. So you start out with the stance and anything else. The tools that we use in teaching soft toss, the cage work, anything to do with the heel-toe slide. Weight, obviously, a glove, absolutely not necessary until you get to the cage, because a lot of times people start out in soft toss with safety balls, and plus you're not tossing from too far away. Jimmy sticks, what do we use Jimmy sticks for? Why do they call them Jimmy sticks? Well, Jim Evans was one of the foremost authorities on teaching umpires, and his name is Jim. And he used these to demonstrate heel-toe. And the way that he did it is he would line the heel-toe up and put the Jimmy stick down and see what kind of alignment he had. When we talk about the footwork, first and foremost, what does heel-toe mean? Heel-toe is the position we want to get you into. Go ahead and step into the heel-toe. And I will turn him around. And that is, during the week long or during any mechanics course, pretend that the back of a stool is the heel of the catcher. When you're training your umpires, remind them of that, because you will notice something over a period of time if you're teaching this, that it doesn't quite get it for a real catcher. It doesn't quite emulate the spacing that you would normally have with a real catcher. But go ahead and make sure they understand that. We're pretending this is the catcher's heel. And what we will do is we will tell them that the first step that you step in with is your left foot. And we will line up, for the purposes of basics, we tell them there's 3 heel toes. Although it started off as 2 heel toes. And the original 2 heel toes were simply the toes of the umpire on the left foot lined up with the heel of the catcher, and the heel of the umpire's left foot lined up with the toe of his right foot. Why? Why don't we go straight in? Well, we have to give an allowance for space here for the catcher. Secondarily, it allows us to turn our body just slightly to point in the direction and square in the direction that we actually want to be facing, which is looking at the outside part of the foot and a ball coming in here. Questions? Everybody understand that? Everybody understand the foundation of the umpire stance? So we added a third heel toe, and I believe over the years we've had a tendency to abuse the third heel toe. What do I mean by that? People say heel toe, heel toe, heel toe, but in reality what we're talking about with the third heel toe is a batter in his normal stance lining up the batter's heel with your toe in this order here. The problem with that is, when you go back home, I had an umpire tell me he's been working that third heel toe for years, no matter where the batter was. What does that do to you? That puts you in a position to not have any slot, to maybe be too far off to the left, which is really hard to do. But the biggest problem would be if the batter's squeezing, and you put your heel on the batter's, you put your toe on the heel third, you're going to have a problem. But he didn't understand that. I explained it to him. I said that was, for the purposes of the umpire school, the very basic beginning of training. So what I'm telling you guys is you want to do
Good job, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you.
I like how you present.
Oh, I appreciate that.
No, it's very, very clear
let's hold off on that. And I appreciate that.
You field those weird questions in a respectful way.
Yes, thank you. Oh, because he said this is a really dumb question. No, it's not.
No.
Because two other people are thinking of that same question. They just don't have the balls to say it.
Can I go lower? No. Can I go higher? Don't get stuck here. Don't get stuck on that. The reason we need to instruct our umpires that I really don't want to see you any lower than that is because I have a fear that, okay, sorry. We have a fear that if an umpire's here and he doesn't have a slot, first of all, he may have to raise up more than he's comfortable with, but secondarily, he can no longer see this pitch because he's gone down too far. Close. And there are many other things that you need to take into consideration during a real game. Okay. When you are teaching the basics of an umpire, don't go into all the other stuff like I am now. Okay. But I'm giving you that information because you're going to be asked questions just like you ask me, and you can't stand there and say I don't know. You need to know the answer. Correct? Okay. Lean squat width determines head height. So next, you have him go down into that. You start by giving him command on the rubber, which is he will go to the standing set, and you have him go down into the stance that you've taught him, whether it's hands on knees or the wrap. Show the wrap. Okay, and the wrap, in case you get confused when you're first teaching, is always the arm that's where the batter is. So I've seen guys in the school come over here and go, well, where's my batter? Okay. All you need to remember is, batter's right here, that's the arm I wrap. That's the arm I'm protecting. Because this one, I've got a little bit of protection from the catcher, although we never allow an umpire to say, I'm using my catcher as protection. That's what your equipment is for. Okay, and you will hear umpires, old-time umpires, instructors say, use your catcher as protection. Absolutely not. That is not what our catcher is for. Because then if you start thinking about he's my protection, you're going to get out of your slot position. You're going to be in a position where I'm more worried about my catcher protecting me and being closer to the catcher than you are about calling the ball and strike and the ball coming through the zone on the outside part of the corner. You're too close to the catcher and all you see is this right here, the back of the head. Okay? Does everybody understand the concept of why I need to be in the slot, why my head height is important? Okay?
Question.
Yes?
So you talk about head height a lot. What do we do in the, at the younger, minor level, when you have the kid who's like 3 foot tall?
Yeah.
Like, even if I get down to like the top of the catcher, like, that's still above the kid's head.
That's what prayer is for.
There's nothing that says you need to get lower with a smaller kid.
All right.
There's nothing that says that. You may think that and perceive that I need to get lower because I need to have my head down in that strike zone. That's absolutely not true. I will tell you, if you watch my World Series video, you'll see me way up here on every pitch. I'm almost a foot above, because I want to be able to see everything, the whole zone, and I get to the point where that is my standard position, and I never change it. Minors, majors, seniors, juniors, high school, whatever. I never change it. So if you are umpiring or teaching your umpires that you need to get lower because the strike zone is lower, that is not true. Have them teach and learn from a standard height. And we talked about Jerry Davis. The size of his catcher does vary, but he is always at his arm's length, hands on knees, and his height never changes, so he sees the pitch the same. You need to judge whether it qualifies as a strike based upon the batter size, not the catcher size. Does that make sense? Okay.
How about when the...
I think your perception is I need to be lower because my catcher is smaller. That is not true.
No, I'm worried about, I'm more worried about the batter. Like, how do I call the lower high pitch if I'm not even, where my eyesight is, I'm already at the kid's head.
Okay, great question.
Head,
Great question.
How do I call that high-low?
Okay.
Like, I'm not even in zone.
All right. And the answer is, where did the ball end up in the glove? And now I take another look at it, and I process it in my head, and I tell myself, this kid is this tall. There's where his knees are. Here's where the ball ended up, and I saw it cross the plate. Now I have complete information. I just took the time to figure all that out. I get to call my ball or strike now. Guys, you can't freeze the ball over the plate. Don't try to. You want to know what 70% of my call is? Right here. Right there. Because if you have the ability to freeze that ball over the plate and then make your decision, you're God. Okay? But this, I'm now stopped. I now have complete information. I saw what happened here. Now, if Barry Zito had thrown the ball and I saw it go like that, I have to take that into consideration. But 70% of my call is that. That. Where did it end up in the glove? Okay? Stop trying to freeze the ball over the plate.
Oh, when the catcher slides over. He's way,
I thank him and say, thanks for giving me all that room to see all the plate.
and you just stay
I stay exactly where I'm at. Yeah.
normal.
Because if you move with him, then you are using him as your protection.
Right.
Which I'm not saying that's the ultimate bad, but you just took away that big wide view you have out here.
Yeah.
Okay? Normal,
Put you in there.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, good point.
But then what I was thinking is with the heel to toe.
With the heel and the toe, I'm not changing anything. He moves that way, I don't
You stay where
move.
you're
I stay where I'm at. Because I'm already planted right here. My vision is right here. Okay? I can see the release of the pitch just off of his body. And if he slides outside now I just went, wow, I got a great view of everything else. Okay? My problem is when he goes here and he goes here,
Now you can't.
that's the problem. Now I have to adjust.
I can't see.
Okay. Hang on, guys, I had one here first.
Yeah, if the catcher raising higher because sometimes when call it two strike, no ball of two more, one strike, the catcher raises a little bit off. Are you supposed to?
During the pitch?
Yeah.
Okay, we all saw this Boston, I think it was the Yankee-Boston series, and somebody posted a clip. They were obviously a Boston fan, or was it a Yankee fan? And it showed that pitch that came in during that playoff series where there was a misread between the catcher and the pitcher. And the pitch that they showed in the photo was this. Perfect. How in the world can that umpire miss that call? How in the world? So I went back to see that specific play, and here's what happened. So what I need you to do is raise up like you thought it was going to be a high fastball. Yep. And then squat back down and catch it here. And here's exactly what happened.
Collusion between the umpire and the catcher?
So the pitcher pitched the ball. He gave his signal. The pitcher took it as one thing. He took it as another. And here's what it actually looked like. And they shot the photo there. What they didn't show was when the ball crossed the plate, that's where the catcher was. And you know where the umpire was? Right there. Can he see that when it dropped back down into the strike zone? No. Who's that on? That's on the catcher. Now, if he had the ability to see that it did go into the strike zone and the catcher didn't block his view, call it a strike. But in this particular case, that catcher's manager, and that pitcher knew they threw a strike, but absolutely accepted it because he blew it. By the two miscommunicated curveball, fastball, high pitch, low pitch, he stood up on the umpire. There's no way they will argue that call, even though it was a strike, and he balled it. Simply because that's baseball, and that's the way it is. How can the umpire make a call, a strike, if he didn't see a strike? Okay. Does that answer your question?
Similar to that, but a little different, is sometimes, especially when they're just starting to learn how to throw breaking balls, the catcher will actually set up way high.
Yes.
So not to get the ball that's coming, but he'll start way up. Should we adjust how we're,
Yes.
so that we can, I mean,
You have to.
you just gotta just see.
You
it
have to adjust.
a little?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't, then you're not
Or
going to see
you
the
miss it,
pitch.
Yeah.
So it brings up another point. If you see a strike, call a strike. I don't care what happened. If you see a strike and the catcher drops the ball and it's dead middle, you better call that a strike. Some people won't call it a strike simply because the catcher caught it. This is youth baseball. This is Little League. If he doesn't catch it and it was a strike, call the damn strike. Okay? Now, when I get into college games, it may be a little different. And I have a borderline pitch that that catcher doesn't nail, then I'll probably ball it. But in Little League, guys, call it what it is. Okay? If my catcher stands up on me in Little League and I can't see a strike, I'm not calling a strike, even if it was a strike. There's nothing I can do for them.
So what do you do with a very timid catcher or whatever? He's worried about the batter. He's like 12 feet behind the plate. Pitcher's throwing strikes, but they're bouncing all over.
Okay.
And you're dancing out of the way of everything.
Do me a favor, guys. We've gotten into a Q&A session, and I haven't finished my instruction session yet. So hold your questions. Let me give a little more instruction. Absolutely great question. But let me continue with the instruction, and then we'll do the Q&A at the end. Okay. So now as you're teaching your umpires, you've developed the foundation, which is the stance. You should have covered that stance in soft toss. That's where it started after a demo by your instructors the night before, the day of, whatever, just to explain what does that mean. So we've talked about the heel toe, we've talked about the height. You need to talk about what to do with their arms. The wrap is the primary stance that we teach. Going back to when Jim Evans do it, if you guys watch Teddy Barrett, like 6'8", 6'7", you see this big monster spread his legs and go here. He looks the best I've ever seen at it. If you saw him recently in was it the World Series he did? Yeah. You know he was taught by Jim Evans when you just look at his stance. So it's what we teach, the heel toe slot stance with the wrap arm, all right? But we've come to the point now where we're teaching something a little bit different, okay? So now the Jerry Davis comes along, and what he says makes sense for Little League umpires except for one thing. I do not believe, Mark does not believe, and all the discussions I've had with other senior instructors is I don't think we have the ability to stay in one place all the time in that stance because of what this catcher does and what that batter does all the time. To tell you the truth, I don't know how Jerry Davis gets away with saying, I always put my nose on the inside part of the plate. I haven't had that in-depth conversation with him about it yet. I've asked Mark about it, and he agrees, and that's why we teach the modified Jerry Davis. We're not going to tell you to nail yourself on that part of the plate when it's not something that I think is realistic. So, Jerry Davis on the rubber, set, ball's pitched. Okay, simple as that. Where is our head? Where is our face square to when we set up our stance? Jerry Davis or heel toe slot. Okay, so stand back up. For the wrap perspective, he goes into a stance. When you're teaching your umpires and you get them in there, the first thing he's going to do is he's going to square with the pitcher. Go into your stance. Yep. And he is going to look straight up and square his face with me. Absolutely wrong. Why? If we tell him not to move his head whatsoever during the course of the pitch, what are his eyes going to look like when he finishes by tracking the ball to the glove, low outside? Okay? That's what they're going to look like. The reality is, if you do the heel toe and you tell your umpire not to move his spine, he is slightly cockeyed, isn't he? He's already aligned to where we want him to be. And if he doesn't turn his neck, doesn't turn his face, and we tell him to go straight down without doing anything else, where does he end up? Go ahead. He ends up here, slightly off. And if we tell him to kind of keep this straight, his head ends up just a little tipped right here, where you will now be binocular as that ball crosses the plate. You have to now take your eyes up to the pitcher, strain just a little to see the release of the ball. I don't need to worry about that. I'm not calling balls when he releases it. What I need to worry about is once the ball arrives in the zone, the strike zone, that I have to make a decision on, where are his eyes now and how comfortable are they? Very comfortable, very focused, binocular, straight ahead, not straining. And there's where your face and eyes should be. Okay, an important concept. I see it all the time. Umpires set up, they go here, here, and this. Reality is it should be here. And then take your eyes up. Okay? All right, questions?
So Jeff, you're saying that with the full-on Jerry Davis, he's actually square to the pitcher?
Well, we are teaching a modified Jerry Davis. The only difference is you're not wrapping your arm. You are using your arms to determine your head height.
So regular Jerry Davis is really the same without that?
Regular Jerry Davis preaches, you're here, always. You're always going to line up here no matter where anybody else is.
Right off the inside corner?
Right off the inside corner. That's what he told us. We tried to pin him down on the detail. What do you do down here? What do you do up here? What do you do? I don't care. I don't care what you do whatsoever. You could cross your legs. You could do whatever you want with your arms. If your head is in the same position every single time, what does it matter? There's a certain thing to be said about that. And I've told people this over and over time, especially you as an evaluator. You get a guy who's been umpiring for 5 years. You go to evaluate him, and he's not quite doing what you taught him in the school. And you're overly critical of what's happening down here. You're overly critical about his stance, his squat, his width, his head height. But he absolutely didn't miss a single pitch the entire game. Who's wrong, you or the umpire? I'd say you are. Yes, there's the basics when you teach beginning umpires, but if Jason nailed his head in the same position all day long, and that's what we told him to do, using the Jerry Davis stance, who am I to criticize that his stance, his width, his lean is off a little bit from what we taught him, the basics at the school? What's the difference between this and this? Or this? Where's my head? Same spot. Which means my eyes, unless they're detached from my head, are in the same spot. Okay? When you teach umpires, you're going to teach them the foundation. You're going to teach them this. When you get down the road 5, 10 years, and the guy's been doing it for a while, and his head is always in the same position, don't be overly critical about the rest of it if he's nailing the zone.
But one common thing, all the 3 different stances you had, is your equipment was square to the pitcher.
Yeah.
What I've seen, one particular case was the kid was doing great, but he was turned, and I was afraid he was going to get nailed in the ear.
If I see somebody skewed too much, I will fix them.
Yeah.
And it isn't a matter of he's here to here, because when I go down, I'm off a little bit. I'm just off a little bit, which is where I want to be.
Yeah.
Or I could do this and do this. It doesn't feel comfortable to me.
But you're still square.
I allow myself to go here and here. My body's turned. If I go straight down from here, where does it put me because of my heel toe? I didn't move anything from my neck on down, my neck on up. Where did I end up? Right there.
You're talking about that kid that's like, it gets in here like this.
Exactly like
That's
that.
dangerous. Absolutely dangerous.
So, this is, how do you?
That's different, because now you're talking about safety and balls hitting them here.
Safety.
Okay.
So, I talked to him many times.
And you're talking about a kid. You need to fix that.
Well, he's 14, 15.
Right.
He knows everything.
So, my next thought is, every game, talk to him. Okay, let's go through it. Show me your stance. Okay, that looks good. During the game, keep quizzing. So I'm thinking maybe videotape next. Maybe he does it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a guy who's been umpiring. He's been to the umpire school twice, and he started doing the same exact thing. Yeah.
And have you been able to get through to him?
I haven't. Unfortunately, he didn't work fall ball, so I haven't been able to fix him yet.
So maybe video.
Yeah.
Show him.
Yeah.
As a UIC, put your gear on, get out there with them and fall ball. I've done it. Get right behind them.
And then turn it.
Just get right behind them and keep them square. And you're geared up, he's geared up.
Right.
And fall ball.
You will see Mike Kashopo, the AAA umpire I talked about that teaches at our week-long. He will see people not doing things properly, moving their head, and he will walk up and he will hold you still. I've got this on video. And he will hold you right there several pitches until you start to get the idea. Okay? Pick the biggest guy, huge, monstrous muscles, and have him go back there. He'll never do it again. Just grab him and just stay still.
We all don't have an Art Valdez.
Yeah. Call Art up. What have I missed? Do you teach it differently?
What about if the catcher sets up late and he moves forward on you? What do you do?
You need to pick up that pattern and adjust. I will tell you that I do not settle into my stance until the last second, because I've developed a pattern after the first half inning with that catcher to figure out if he's a mover or he's not. Now, most good kids, when you get to the state or regional and World Series, they're jumping on you every pitch. There's no reason for me to set up prior to him making his last jump, because he's here, he's giving a signal, and then when he's done signaling, all of a sudden he does this, or all of a sudden he does that. I'm not going to set up prior to that, because I just figured out his pattern. You need to figure out the catcher's pattern. So if you go down, go ahead and go down, and then he's still giving the signals, and then he jumps out, now you have to move every single time, another time. And it may be very unsettling, and you may not get where you want to be, versus you waited, you know his pattern, gives a signal, He jumps out. Now you go down to your set position. Go heel toe. Go standing set on the rubber command. But you stay here until he makes his final jump, and you will have figured it out. Because the catchers, there's two types as far as this is concerned. They move or they don't move.
Actually, if you move out, you don't care, you stay with
Pardon me?
If that catcher jumps out, you don't want to move with it.
I'm not.
He'll give you a better-
You're right, but if he moves in, then you have to deal with it. They're not going to always just ask for the outside pitch.
How far in are you moving with that catcher? Because I've had some that you have the batter outside of the box. The catcher's reading it, he's going to pitch him in.
Okay, you mean when I have no slot?
You chase him, I'd be like a good.
When I have no slot? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, how far are you chasing that slot?
Until I can't see the release of the pitch anymore. And then I have to do something different, which is what? What do you? I have to go up. Because now, go ahead and spin towards him, guys, so he can see what I'm talking about. No, the other way. Keep going. So now, he's not giving me any slot whatsoever. What is Jason going to do? In his normal position, he may not be able to see that plate. Okay, so what he is going to do is he's going to get a little more aggressive into the slot, but more importantly, he's going to raise up so he can, instead of seeing through the space in the slot, he now has to see over the top the relationship between the ball and the plate and the tracking to the glove. Okay, over the top. I never got the concept that said move back. Never ever got the concept of I don't have a slot, so move back and up. I don't understand that to this day. I hope somebody can explain it to me. Because what's going to happen if I move back? We'll be further away and not be able to see through the catcher. But that was the instruction set we were given years ago, up and back. Never got it. So using the why would they tell me to do that? I figured out that's not good for me. I move into the slot, if anything, up into the slot and up in my height of my stance. And then I look down on top to see the tracking to the glove. Yes?
You said 70% of your calls are based on catcher receiving the ball in glove.
Where it is positioned in the catcher's glove.
In relation to it. Does his head height and knee height help you in relation to the batter? His knees are usually pretty close to the same height as the batter.
Yes, they do.
His head height is
Absolutely.
pretty close to the top of his
I absolutely use, and that's why I'm allowed to use my 70%. I absolutely judge him catching it based on the relationship that typically the catcher's knees are almost exactly where the batter's knees are. And if he nails it here, then I know I've got a strike on the bottom. If he goes down here, I don't need to look over here. I know the relationship between him and the batter. So I don't need to think about him necessarily as much as I do as where did he catch it.
Right, it's something I've found helpful with my junior.
Been using it for years.
They can look at that and say, you know, look, his knees are the same height as the batter.
Exactly.
His head height
It is a more accurate,
top of the batter's zone. If you can see it within that area, even though you're coming up,
yes,
that's a good indicator. of
absolutely.
you're getting.
I will tell you, I probably use him more than I do him in deciding the height of the strike zone. Because I look at him, normal size, he's not Mark McGuire behind the plate, and he's the normal size of most of the kids that are coming up to bat. And you always note the extremes when they come up, a lot smaller, a lot bigger. Other than that, my strike zone's going to be based on that guy.
I just thought that might be helpful for guys that teach.
I'm glad you said that because not too many people talk about that, but for reality, that's reality for me.
If you teach the timing all the way to the glove, you'd be amazed at what your eyes will pick up. You'll pick up reference to the batter's knees, the batter's belt, everything. When you track it all the way to the glove, your binocular vision will pick up everything.
Yep.
Right, in perception of the catcher, right straight
Yeah,
across, knee
yeah.
across, it does line
Yeah.
up.
I mean, you all know. Stick your hand out straight across from your forehead. You know, I see that. In normal sized 11 or 12-year-old, what do I have? Really? I get anything up in here, I need to really think about whether that's a strike or not.
It is towards the top.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. If you're calling pitches there like Little League says to do, you're going to be booed out of the stadium.
It's tough.
Right? I mean, you all know that, right? If Little League says your strike zone is the armpits, and I see you on ESPN calling that pitch, wow. The world's going to laugh at you, unfortunately. You'll never see us call that pitch, even though Little League says it's a strike. I don't call that in a regular season game. Which is unfortunate because why don't they match up? I wish they would. How many of you call that a strike? Nobody does.
How many are afraid to admit it?
That's what inning it is.
So how far down do you,
What is the Western
where's your imaginary line?
My line? Guys, you need to develop your own line. I'm telling you my techniques. I don't want you to go back home and say, Coach, Jeff Frese at the Region said, this is the definition of a strike. Can he protest that? If you tell him anything except what's in the rule book, you just made a judgment calling a strike, but you told the coach what the real strike zone is in your book, you just misinterpreted the rule of a strike. Which means that is now protestable. Okay? Because you said the rule says this, and that's what you do. You just made a strike protestable. Be careful. Jeff Frese says the strike zone doesn't happen until it's in the catcher's glove. He didn't catch it in the strike zone in his glove. You just gave him a reason to protest because you just told him the definition of a strike zone is not till it reaches the catcher's glove. We all use tools to decide whether it's a strike or a ball. I loved hearing Mark say what he said because I think a lot of umpires do the same thing. We don't necessarily teach it, but you develop it over time, these little cues, which are, do I have the ability to really see that ball in relationship to his knee versus, man, he caught it right there, and there's that catcher's knee right there, and I know that catcher's knee is the same height as that batter's knee. Now I have a relationship, and I don't need to worry about where that catcher's knee is. That's a tool that you use to decide balls and strikes. If you try to plainly, simply freeze this over the plate and not pay attention to where it ended up in the glove, you're going to have a major problem calling balls and strikes. That's why we track to the glove, and that's why the most important concept when you're teaching this slot stance and you get to the point where you're doing soft toss and you're getting to the point where you're doing cage work, the most important part of all this is watching the student umpire's eyes, which is throwing that soft toss up in the air. You don't care what it looks like. Put a little hump on it, because all you're caring about after you told him to take his sunglasses off unless they're prescription is, are his eyes following the ball to the glove? And then is he using the position of where it landed in the glove in a normal game, not in a hump, to decide as part of the information, and now having complete information in addition to with what did my brain tell me it went over here, and now what does my brain tell me? In combination with this information, You can't neglect this. But this makes it complete because you now have it stop and have a position. Okay? It was very in-depth, not necessarily going to teach us at your first umpire clinic, but it's a way of explaining to them how to go about deciding balls and strikes when they're having problems. What other methods do you guys use? Anything different? Okay. Guess I was right all along. So let's talk about, again, tracking and timing. The tracking part of it is simply watching the release of the ball to the catcher's glove, and then your brain fires its processes and determines whatever method that you use. Yes, I saw that ball. It was over the plate. It meets the definition of a strike, and now I verbally and physically call that ball or strike. That's the timing that is created. Again, as I said earlier today, if you are calling the pitch the second it hits the glove, and do that again, he wasn't ready. On the rubber. Set. Ball's pitch. Strike! Okay, You made up your mind right here. You may not realize it, but you made up your mind right here. And how often have you had that pitch early in your career, or even later, where you heard both sides let out a gasp? Oh, and you went, what? Oh yeah, I didn't track that pitch. It must have been horrible, but you didn't realize it. Because you balled it when I should have called it a strike, or you called it a strike when it was nowhere near the strike zone. You didn't track it all the way to the glove. You, in your mind, said, oh man, that's there's no way that's going to be a strike. And then all of a sudden, boom. And you balled it, and you hear both stands go, oh, right? The side that's up just a little bit louder. You didn't track it to the glove. That's what that sound is. And you need to tell yourself, damn, I need to make sure I watch that all the way into the glove. Because I thought right there, it was definitely no way that was going to come back into the strike zone. So every single pitch, you have to see the ball in the glove. You have to. Okay? Before you make up your mind. Right? Now, to answer one of the questions asked earlier, I got a catcher who's scared, and this is where he wants to be. What do I do as an umpire? First and foremost, you don't coach. Okay? You do not coach that kid and tell him he has to move up. I might ask him to move up. Hey son, do you think you could move a little bit up for me? I'll give you a better strike zone because I can't see from way back here. And he moves up half a step. I'm done with him, okay? What am I going to do now? Well, the next time I have time out, I'm going to go over to the manager, and I'm going to make sure the catcher's involved in the conversation. And I'll say, hey, coach, your catcher's kind of far back. Makes it very difficult to me to accurately call the balls and strikes. And I'll guarantee I'm going to give you more strikes if you move him up a little bit closer. Works every time. Every time. Now the manager has that conversation with the kid. He may still be scared, but he's going to be closer. And he's going to work on it. I do not recommend you crowd the catcher to force him up there. The kid's scared. He's scared. I don't want to force him. You know, some people say, well, next time he throws the ball out, move up. Personally, I'm a little more kid-friendly than wanting to do that. If you decide to do that, fine, if it'll work. But I believe the conversation with the coach and telling him you're going to give him a better strike zone if you move your catcher up. Now you're not coaching him, and your manager's not going to yell at you when you try to tell him you need to move up. Stop coaching my kid. That's what you're going to hear from half of the managers. You simply need to work with the manager. So what happens now? He's back here. The coach hasn't cooperated. The catcher hasn't cooperated. And the guy starts throwing perfect strikes, but you know what's going to happen? Wild pitch, pass ball. That ball becomes not a strike, that is a ball every time it does that, and then he tries to catch it. You have to teach the lesson. This is the exception to that rule. And you're only going to get this at minors and below, guys. They're still learning. But I can't call a strike zone from back here. No better than I can call it from the pitching mound, which is one of the worst spots you can try to call balls and strikes from. I'm used to here. My judgment is here. My muscle memory in my brain is right there. If I have to call pitches from back here, they're going to be balls. Yep.
So the pitcher has adjusted, and he's now throwing high balls that are landing perfectly in the catcher's glove.
It's a ball.
So until the catcher moves up.
If it lands perfectly in the glove at the minor A level, how high did that need to be for it to come back here?
I concur. I'm just saying, but then until the catcher moves up, that kind of makes everything a ball.
Right. You're going to have to decide on your own. I will tell you, I don't want to make it obvious that I'm calling all balls, because then I'm going to get myself into trouble. If I see a strike and he catches it, I'm going to give him a strike. But the lesson needs to be put out there to them that you are forcing me into a position where I cannot be accurate. And I'm not trying to be abusive to the coach by saying everything's a ball. We don't do that. I'm not trying to be abusive in any manner whatsoever other than I cannot now call an accurate strike zone, and anything that comes close to borderline strike is going to be a ball. Okay? So I am not saying intentionally call a strike a ball. What I'm saying is if I got something that I just can't tell, it's going to be a ball because I've asked them to take care of business and they didn't. I'm not trying to be spiteful. I really am not. But it's a technique you can use. I don't like doing the spiteful guy. I don't like doing that. Yes?
How about the instance where you've got a catcher that's setting up way too close to the plate?
I'm going to fix it because it's a safety issue. Okay? I am going to fix that. And I am going to, in the way that I fix that, hey, coach, I'm real concerned about your catcher. I'm afraid he's going to get hit by the batter swing. Can you fix this for me? Okay. Now, if the pitch is immediately about to come in and I really think he's too close, I'm calling time. I'm getting him out of the harm's way before anything can happen. I've had that happen a couple of times, and it's just a matter of I have a responsibility for that kid's safety more than anything else. I don't care what you say if I'm coaching or not. I'm not going to put the kid in harm's way in that manner. Okay. Questions? Nothing else?
Calling location?
Say again?
The umpire's calling location.
The question is, do you indicate location of the pitch? In, out, high, low? How many do you do it? Under what circumstances do you say no, but on some cases you say yes?
I've been in that situation before. I do it when I get mostly out-of-town parents from a visiting team that are just grumbling and bitching about every single pitch. I will just, I'll say ball outside because they can't see outside from the stands.
That's correct.
And I still make the call correctly, but then afterwards, or what I'll do is I'll direct it toward the pitcher as if I'm trying to tell him where he missed. But I'm really doing it so the coach and the parents can hear it. That's the only circumstance where I really talk about location.
Who else? Yes.
I just tell the catcher.
Okay. Loud enough for the catcher to hear and the batter?
Just between me and him.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll do it when I'm asked to, as long as it doesn't become every other pitch.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
I do it inside, outside. If it's really close and it's a high-level game.
All right. Anybody else? Yes.
Borderline pitches mainly, usually outside.
Strike or ball?
Yes.
How do you say it on a strike?
Well, not a strike.
I knew what you meant. The answer of the question is we do not teach that. Do we use it? I do. I get the worst parents in the town for a specific league, and they are grumbling about my strike zone. And I don't want to hear that. Ball, outside. And I say it loud, and I don't hear anything. Preventative umpiring. Little League. It's Little League. Did I do that during the World Series? Oh, hell no. Hell no. Because that's not the way I was taught. That's not considered at that level that you need to do that. I can't hear them anyway. But if I got those people in the stands 15 feet from me, and the game is starting to be hotly contested, or you have a close game, or they don't like my strike zone, or they think they can, that pitch that is out here is a strike, and every time they think it's a strike, and now just the fact that the coaches are grumbling is starting to incite their fans, I'm going to put a stop to it by simply adding the little touch, which is outside. I will not reference high or low. Why? Because they know where it is. Oh, that pitch was high, and you just nailed it right here. And you told them it was high. Well, now you just told them you have no idea what you're talking about. Do not verbalize the location of a high and low pitch. We will not teach you to say anything to qualify your ball or your strike. If you decide back home to do it for, who was the first one to answer my question? For that reason, I completely agree with you. We don't teach that, okay? Yeah.
What about, and this is something I've done, this is something I'm just curious about because I've seen a bunch of umpires do this, strike on the swing. What is he saying besides, hey, that was a terrible pitch and you swung at it anyway, you both suck? Like, what reason is there for anyone to say that?
I don't know the answer to that.
I was just curious, I've never done it.
So I think that what we do, there we go. What we do is, a check swing, we might say something like that, but actually the proper terminology is yes, he went. Because you're not verbalizing the word strike on a swinging strike, right? If he went, it's this. If he went on a check swing, and you agree it's a swinging strike, then the terminology becomes different. Yes, he went. But to do it on a pitch that is, you said, really out there and he swang, I think we must be speaking to ourselves. Yes, he went. And there's absolutely no need for it. And I'm not going to say it's a bad habit, but there's no need for it. There's no need for it. But am I going to critique an umpire who does that? I would probably tell him after the game it's not necessary, nor do we teach that.
Yeah, I would like to shut it down. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a legitimate reason first.
There is no reason.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Believe it or not, many people do it.
Yeah, I know.
For some reason, and I don't know why, because nobody teaches that. Yeah. You had something?
No, I was just saying, a lot of times you get the coach ask you, where did that miss? Out of the strike zone.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's a good point. So if the coach starts harping and asking you, the catcher, the question, he asks his catcher, and he deliberately does that because he doesn't want to argue balls and strikes with you because he knows he can't. Hey, if the coach asks me, hey, Jeff, where'd that miss? I'll tell him. If he does it 5 times a game, he gets it twice. Coach, that was outside. Coach, we're not going to discuss that anymore. There's a strike. Okay. And most coaches who are reasonable aren't going to do it more than a couple of times a game. Now, if he gets to the point where the relationship is one that has become a little bit soured, or it's just that jerk coach that you get out there because that doesn't like umpires and thinks he's God, then he starts asking his catcher, Billy, where did that miss? Tell him it's outside. It's outside, coach. Jimmy, was that a strike? Tell him it's a ball. No, coach, it was a ball. Okay?
What about the catcher that says, yeah, we destroyed?
Every one of them wants to say that because my coach just asked me. Okay? Control that. Or leave it alone. If it happens so few times a game, I'm not going to address it. Don't need to address it the first time, the second time. If it starts getting out of hand and it's 3 times an inning, 4 times an inning, then you need to address it. Okay? In between innings. Coach, every time you do that, the crowd starts getting louder and louder, and my feeling is they're getting a little bit incited by what you're doing there. And I don't think you need it, and I don't think I need it. Could you put a stop to that for me? Have that nice conversation with the coach. Ask nicely. After that, if a coach doesn't want to cooperate with me, I will use every single, you better not step out of that coach's box 1 inch, you get to that point. Because I'm going to be nice to you the entire game. I'm going to be a good friend to you until you don't allow me to be your good friend. And once you barked at me, or once you said something sassy to me, or you came back on me on something, and you were wrong and you're just a jerk, man, don't move an inch outside of what the rules say at that point, because I'm going to enforce every single one of them on you. And that's just something you brought on yourself. Okay? Be nice. Be nice, be nice, be nice. Where's Joseph? Joey? Tigner? So Joey, even things like Joey told you, tell the coach to put the equipment out there. No, I don't do that. Hey, coach, could you do me a favor? Could you have your kids line your equipment outside the dugout? There's a difference. Be nice.
Poor Joey.
Be nice. That sets the tone for the game. Okay? We are Little League umpires. There is no reason for conflict before the game starts. There is no reason you aren't part of that person's community. We're all from the same neighborhood. Little League was designed as a neighborhood program. My kids play in the same league as your kids. We started out that way. I live 2 blocks over. Let's be friends until I can't be your friend anymore. And that starts with you being a jerk first, not me. Okay? What else? Be nice.
I don't think you covered.
With all due respect.
Okay, so we came up with this a couple of years ago. Actually, it was a concept presented to me by Wayne Yoshitomi, and I think it was something that he got from one of his professional umpire clinics or something along those lines. And forgive me for it being tilted. But it is another reason, secondarily, not to be lying directly behind the catcher. And it's pretty much self-explanatory. The danger zones of the foul ball off the bat, as you can see, is when you're in the slot. The only balls you're going to end up in here are ones that are right off the knob. But most of the time, if you're lined up right behind the catcher, man, look out. Because that's where the ball has a tendency to go. Okay? It's not the primary reason, but it's another reason not to be directly behind the catcher. Lined up through the center of the plate. Little League had depicted this recently through some stick figures, and some of you caught the error that they made, which was they had the same type of diagram, but instead of showing the umpire moving out of the slot to directly behind the catcher, they took the catcher and they moved him way over here. I mean, way outside the plate. So, and I shot an email off to Tom Rawlings, the Director of Umpire Development, to let him know that the picture was off. Didn't receive a response, but hopefully he realizes it. But people pick up, we're umpires, we pick up on that stuff. Somebody in our group picked up on it and mentioned it. Huh?
Van Anzi from 54.
Yeah.
Anzini.
Yeah. Any other questions about teaching the slot? Okay. Where's my agenda? We're outside, guys?
Yes, sir.
It is 2:30. We're running about 15 minutes behind. Well, in 10 minutes, we will see you on the stadium field. Hang on. I need to count you off. All right?